if you felt the heat, the war, the intimacy, and the fire hit like, subscribe, share the rebellion. They tied his hands with ceremonial silk, red, symbolic, not of love, but of surrender, commander. Elias Vance stood bare-chested under the 3 moons of Varela Prime, surrounded by an alien court cloaked in luminescent robes and ancient power. Every eye watched him, not with pity, not with respect, but with the clinical satisfaction of a political transaction completed. He wasn't a guest, he was an offering. The humans called it a treaty. The Varelans called it the sacred bond. His Earth-appointed mission leader called it a historic peacekeeping exchange. But Elias knew what it really was. Sacrifice dressed up as diplomacy. And then she walked in, Queen Saklari, 7 feet of divine silver fire, skin like moonlight over ice. Her long braided hair shimmered with floating particles of living crystal, and her eyes deep violet with gold halos pierced him as if she already owned every breath he'd ever taken. She didn't approach like a monarch. She prowled like a predator. He wanted to defy her, to spit in the face of the high priestess, who chanted blessings beside them. But the second Solari reached him, her touch landed on his chest, not rough, not cruel, but curious. Her fingers glided over his skin like she was reading a script written in heat and heartbeat. "You tremble," she whispered in English. "Not from fear, but from fury." "I didn't volunteer for this," Elias growled, his jaw tight. "No. Man does," she purred. "But they all surrender in the end." She leaned in, her lips brushing the shell of his ear as the crowd silenced to hear the final words of the rite. "Let the blood-bound union commence," the priestess said. Elias's wrists were unbound. He didn't run, he didn't kneel, he just stood there, staring at the queen who now, by every custom of her empire, owned him. A pulse passed between them, invisible but electric. His body betrayed him, heat rose where her eyes lingered. Hunger flickered in the air like static. A quiet gasp escaped someone in the crowd as the queen took his hand and placed it on her bare collarbone. "You are mine now, Earthborn. In body, in duty, and in pleasure," she said, her voice soft but laced with authority. "Is that a command?" Elias challenged. "No," she smiled. "It's a promise." That night, they brought him to her royal sanctum, an alien chamber of velvet dark air, glowing with stardust silk and pulsing crystals. It was unlike anything built by human hands. But it wasn't the architecture that disarmed him, it was her. Solari removed her crown and placed it between them. No titles in this room, no empires, just us. Elias's walls cracked, not because he trusted her, but because, for the first time since his forced arrival, someone saw him, not the soldier or the symbol, but the man. "Say what you want, Elias Vance. I'll only touch you if you speak it." "I don't want your pity," he murmured. Her lips ghosted his cheek. "Then take my hunger. I don't want to belong to you." Her mouth pressed against his neck. "Then let me belong to you instead." He spun her around, his hands, finally gripping her not out of surrender, but choice. "You want my body," he growled. "Then take it, but it'll never be enough." She smiled like a queen who'd already won. "That's the point, human. I want more than your body. I want your fire." Their mouths crashed, no longer tentative, no longer bound by treaty or politics. His fingers tangled in her glowing braids as her claws raked gently down his spine. Each kiss tasted like rebellion and ruin. Elias lifted her onto the crystalline altar in the center of the room. Their bodies collided in a dance neither planet. had ever seen before. Hers was a touch made of thunder and silk, his full of fury and need and something neither of them dared name. The altar hummed. The air thickened with rising heat and ancient energy. Their moans were not quiet, their marriage was not gentle. It was a storm made flesh as sacred violence, a divine collision. And when it was over, Elias didn't collapse in defeat. He stood, breathless, proud and burning. "You think you've won," he said between gasps. "No," Solari whispered as she traced her fingers down his jaw. "I think we've only just begun." Elias woke to a bed that pulsed with soft warmth beneath him, as if the very sheets were alive with memory. Alien light filtered through the curved crystalline walls, casting gentle blue-gold waves across his bare skin. For a moment, he almost forgot where he was until he turned and saw her watching him. Solari sat beside him, cloaked in only the shimmer of morning starlight, her silver skin aglow, her eyes unreadable. She hadn't touched him again during the night. After their bodies had finished writing rebellion into each other, she had simply curled beside him, quiet, reverent, as if she feared breaking something fragile. But Elias wasn't fragile. He was human, hardened by war, raised on loss. "What do you want from me?" he asked, voice low, eyes fixed on hers. Solari tilted her head. "They want you to smile, attend dinners, prove that Earth and Varela are united, and you." She leaned closer. "I want you to stop pretending this is only duty." Elias sat up, letting the sheets fall from his chest, revealing the scars that marked his time in battle. "You think this means something?" he asked bitterly, gesturing between them. "You forced me into a bond. You made me yours." "Didn't make you anything, Elias," she said softly. "I chose you. There's a difference." He laughed, cold, humorless. A choice made by a queen with all the power, standing over a chained man. That's not love. That's conquest. She didn't flinch. Instead, she reached out and ran a fingertip gently along the edge of a scar over his rib. "And what is this? A trophy of your own conquests?" He didn't answer. Couldn't, because something in her tone wasn't mocking. It was yearning. Later, they walked the palace halls together, dressed in ceremonial garb, his bare arms inked with the temporary symbols of her people, hers draped in gold-threaded silk that fluttered like fire in low gravity. The nobles watched them, some with admiration, most with suspicion. He didn't belong here. But then her fingers brushed against his as they passed a court of advisors, and she whispered, "Let them see you take space beside Minot behind me." That was the first time he reached for her hand without being asked. They led him to a diplomatic chamber, where Earth envoys sat in formal attire, surrounded by Varellan elders. A feast of unity, they called it. A performance, Elias thought. His stomach twisted. But as the night drew on, he noticed something strange. Solari didn't parade him. She didn't flaunt him. She defended him when a virulent elder questioned his background. When a human ambassador spoke of his duty to adapt, she cut them off with quiet, calculated grace. "He is not a symbol," she said, her voice cool but sharp. "He is a man, and he is mine by vow, not by politics." The room fell silent. Elias met her eyes. This wasn't performance. This was protection. That night, he didn't wait for her to reach for him. He came to her. Her private chambers were dimly lit, walls glowing with slow pulses of light that matched the thrum of her breath. She turned, surprised. "I thought you'd hate me longer," she said softly. "I don't know what I feel," Elias admitted, "but I know what I want." She stepped forward, bare feet whispering against the floor. Say it. I want your truth, not your throne, not your power, just you. She exhaled, as if those words had freed something inside her. Then take me, Elias Vance, not as your captor, as your equal. Their mouths met again, not with the fire of rebellion, but with the slow burn of recognition. They undressed each other like they were undoing war, one layer at a time. Her hands weren't dominant this time. They were worshipful. His touch wasn't defiant, it was devoted. When he laid her down, she didn't guide him. She yielded, and in that moment, Elias knew she hadn't taken him. He had chosen her. They moved like memory, like hunger and healing had found the same bed. When she moaned his name into the night, it wasn't a command, it was a prayer. And when he whispered, hers back, Salary, it didn't feel like surrender, it felt like home. The throne room of Varela was carved into the side of a mountain made of crystal and echo. Every step Elias took on its silver floor whispered a question back at him. Do you belong here? He didn't answer. He walked behind Queen Salari, not because he was submissive, but because this was still her world, her court, her empire. He was still learning how to breathe, higher among serpentine politics, glowing-eyed aristocrats, and rights older than Earth's entire history. But when she stopped at the foot of her throne and turned to face him, something shifted. This, she said quietly, is where the sacrifice ends. Elias's brow furrowed. What does that mean? I won't make you perform anymore, she said. I won't parade you in front of those who still see you as a treaty in flesh. She stepped aside and motioned to the seat behind her, made of obsidian alloy and living stone. Take it, sit beside me, be more than they fear. Elias's jaw tightened. You want me on the throne? No, she said, her voice dropping to something more intimate, more dangerous. I want you with me, always. He looked at Horelli, looked at her, not the queen, not the goddess, not the alien icon wrapped in starborn silk and centuries of rule, just her. And that was when he shook his head. I don't want your throne, he said. I want your skin, your breath, the sound you make when you forget you're supposed to be untouchable. Salari's breath hitched. Her expression cracked just slightly, a sliver of rawness slipping through her usual steel. No crown? She asked, stepping closer, voice softening. No crown, he murmured, just you. She reached for him, fingers brushing the collar of his robe. Then take me, she whispered, somewhere no one wears armor. He didn't need more than that. They didn't wait until nightfall. He led her down the side corridors of the palace, away from watching eyes, away from sacred relics and scripted glances. They entered a room with no titles, just a skylight carved into the ceiling where the violet moons stared. Down like Voyeurs. Elias kissed her before she could say anything else. He kissed her like she was air, like he'd been drowning since the moment he'd stepped onto this alien planet and only just now remembered what it was like to breathe. Her hands found his shoulders. She pushed him back against the wall. But this time, when her body pressed into his, it wasn't dominance, it was desperation. The need to be wanted, not obeyed. He stripped the robe from her shoulders. It fell like mist. Her skin glowed in the lunar light, her pulse visible beneath its shimmering surface. And when he dropped to his knees before her, he didn't do it out of submission. He did it because worship felt like the only proper response. Her gasp was sharp when he kissed the inside of her thigh. Her fingers tangled in his hair, not guiding, but grounding. The taste of her was fire and starlight, ancient and alive, and Elias drank it in like a man dying of thirst. She whispered his name like a secret she wasn't supposed to keep. When he stood again, she was trembling eyes, wild lips parted, skin flushed in every constellation. "Elias," she said, voice low and fractured, "you undo me." He caught her mouth in his again and guided her to the floor, laying her back beneath the stars. There was no ceremony, no crown, just heat, flesh, intention. He slid into her slowly, deliberately, watching every inch of her react. Her back arched, her fingers clawed at the floor beneath her, and when their hips met, when they finally became, when everything else disappeared. The galaxy didn't matter, the war didn't matter, the throne could burn. Only this moment existed. They moved together in a rhythm not born of duty but desire. Her moans weren't regal, they were raw, and when she cried out his name, choking on the syllables like they were her only anchor, Elias felt something break loose inside him. He wasn't just her consort. He wasn't just her human. He was her equal, her lover, her choice. They collapsed together, slick with sweat and breathless. After a long silence, Solari pressed her lips to his chest, right over his heart. "Every queen in my lineage has taken power by force," she murmured, "but I would surrender to you, willingly." He ran a hand through her hair, kissed the top of her head. "I don't want you to surrender," he whispered. "I want you to stay." The screams came just after dawn. Ilias shot up from the silken bed, instinct reacting before thought. He reached for the ceremonial blade Celery kept hidden beneath her robes, but she was already in motion, naked, glorious, powerful. She didn't flinch as the wall of their chamber exploded inward, sending a wave of crystal dust through the air. Guards flooded in. Not hers, traitors. SAELAR. I moved with fluid violence. Her hand snapped forward, summoning a spear of light from the wall. In one breathless moment, she impaled the first attacker through his midsection. He dropped with a grunt of disbelief. Elias stood beside her, not behind her. Never again behind her. His blade cut through the second rebel's throat before the man even registered the human had moved. Blood hissed across the floor like acid, painting Solari's feet. They stood back to back, bodies bare, hearts locked. "You said they feared me," Elias growled, catching another attacker's blade against his forearm, twisting it from his hand and driving his knee into the man's gut. "I didn't realize they feared you with me more." "They fear what they can't control," Solari said, voice calm amid the chaos. "And I don't want to control you. I want to burn with you." By the time the smoke cleared, 6 rebels lay dead. The rest fled into the corridors, disappearing, like shadows too cowardly to finish the coup. The palace shook with uncertainty. The court demanded answers. The elders whispered accusations. The human made her weak. The queen lost her mind. The bond has corrupted her rule. They ordered Salari to exile him, to annul the marriage, to break the vow. But Salari did not kneel. She stood in the throne room, still streaked in blood, robes loose over her glowing skin. Elias at her side, one hand on the hilt of his blade, the other resting at the small of her back like a claim no one could take from him. "I offered peace," she told them. "You chose war, and now you expect me to abandon the only one who fought for me instead of against me." "He is earthborn," one of the elders shouted. "He is not a Virella." Solari's voice dropped. "Dangerous, final. He is mine." The room froze. She turned to Elias. They want you gone. They want to pretend this never happened. He stared at her. What do you want? Her eyes met his, unblinking, unshaken. I want to mark the stars with your name. She took his hand in front of them all, placed it over her heart, and whispered something, ancient words no translator could replicate. The chamber's air tightened. The throne glowed faintly. The Virulon priestess gasped. What did you just do? Elias murmured. I gave you my soul name, she said. The one no queen has ever shared. You just made me part of you, he breathed. For life. No, she corrected gently, leaning into him. For forever. That night, they didn't make love in soft sheets. They claimed each other like warriors who survived a battlefield. On the floor of the war room, on the stone steps beneath the starlit garden, in the rain of molten petals from the fire-bloom tree that only opened once every 100 years, Elias took her like the world was ending, and in a way it had dot everything. Before her felt like shadow, everything after like flame. Their moans echoed against the crystal walls, not in shame, but in declaration. She rode him like a queen, reclaiming her empire through intimacy, through sweat and teeth and heat. He gripped her hips, pulled her tighter, whispered promises into the hollow of her throat that made her eyes shatter with light, and when they came together, trembling, gasping, it felt like the universe heard. Later, wrapped in the golden light of virulent moonfire, she curled into him, her voice barely above a breath. They will try again. Let them, he said. I didn't survive Earth's wars just to bow to alien cowards. She smiled against his chest. Then we fight. No, Elias whispered, pulling her closer. We rise. The virulent sky cracked open with fire. From the eastern ridge of the throne city, Elias watched the storm approach, not natural, not weather, but war. Rebel ships rose like a plague from the shattered moons, streaking red light across the sky, headed straight for the heart of the empire. They had one goal: kill the queen, break the bond, erase the human. Come inside, Sailari said behind him, the wind tangling her silver braids. She stood wrapped in armor forged from the core of dying stars, but beneath it, he could still see her, his wife, his fire. Elias turned, eyes locked with hers. You think they'll reach us? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. He took her hand. Then let's give them something to fear. The palace became a fortress. She led him into the command chamber, walls glowing with strategic light, holograms of incoming enemy vessels, and defense shields flickering in uneven pulses. They hacked the outer rings. One of her generals said, panic in her voice. Our fleets are fractured. The high priestess is dead. They're coming for your throne. They're coming for my husband, Sailari corrected, voice a blade. Elias stepped forward, scarred and half-armored. Then we give them a throne made of ash, and a man who refuses to die. She looked at him fierce, overwhelmed, and so full of love it nearly broke him. And then she did something no one expected. She stepped onto the balcony of the palace, raised her hand to the heavens, and called down the fire. Literally, a sunbeam, sliced from the upper atmosphere, summoned by the royal bloodline's birthright defense system locked away for generations. The beam hit the lead rebel ship, ripping it in half midair. The others scattered. Elias watched her, silhouetted against the flame-drenched sky, power radiating from her like the birth of a star. But even now, even with war bearing down, her eyes never left his. I was made to rule, she said, descending the stairs to him as flames licked the horizon. But for you, I would burn the sky just to keep your name in my mouth. He caught her as she reached him, pulled her in. The scent of smoke and silk on her skin drove him mad. I don't want the galaxy, he murmured, his hands tearing at the clasps of her armor. I just want you. She kissed him like the world was ending. Maybe it was. But if it did, everything fell and turned to stardust. He wanted this to be the last memory time remembered. They collided in the war chamber. Bodies desperate, voices breaking. He stripped her bare in the flickering red light of sirens and chaos, laid her down. Atop the star map table, she welcomed him with legs parted, back arched, eyes burning. When he entered her, it wasn't gentle, it was glorious. They moved in rhythm with the crumbling palace around them. Every thrust was a defiance, every moan a refusal to surrender. Her hands clawed at his back, pulled him closer, deeper, as if she could fuse him inside her, keep him safe beneath skin and soul. I am yours, she gasped. He kissed the hollow of her throat. Then take me, forever. Their climax came with an explosion inside and out. A distant wall collapsed. A starship detonated mid-air. But Elias only saw her lips trembling, body shaking, crying out his name with the kind of ache that rewrote the gods. They didn't speak for a long while after, just held each other in the center of a dying empire. Eventually, dawn came. The rebellion had failed. The sky was scorched. The people afraid, but alive. Elias stood on the same balcony where she had summoned fire. This time Solari stood behind him, her hand on his chest. What now? He asked. We rebuild. They'll never forgive you, he said, for choosing me over tradition. I don't need forgiveness, she said. I need truth. And you are the only truth I've ever known that didn't bow to fear. He turned, facing her. So we fight for love now. She smiled, fierce and raw. No, we lead with it. He kissed her slow, reverent, final in all the right ways. Below, the people gathered, whispering stories of a queen who destroyed half her own sky just to protect her mate. They would learn this wasn't a sacrifice, this was a beginning. The end, but their legend begins. Asterisk.